Shout out to Bring Our Q, Julius, you legend. We're going to do a joint interview, yeah? Yeah, we'll do a joint interview, Julius. Thanks for the support. You're a legend. From your girls, Raven and Ellie.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The World Boxing Council recently released their updated women's rank standings. In the women's super middleweight division, unbeaten up-and-comer from the United States, Raquel Miller, is ranked at number 1. The reigning WBC champion at super middle is Franchon Crews. How could Raquel Miller, who has not boxed in roughly 2 going on 3 years, come in at number 1, the number 1 contender for Franchon Crews after that stint of inactivity? What that communicates to me is that behind the scenes, wheels are in motion and dialogues are being had for Raquel to challenge Franchon either next or after a couple of fights, because how could she be ranked at number 1 having not fought in close to 3 years? Her last fight was all the way back there.
March of 2023?
Her last fight was in March of 2023, so that if March of next year gets here without Raquel having had a fight, that will bring the stint to 3 years. 3 years of inactivity. Sporting a professional record of 13 wins with no losses and no draws, 6 recorded knockouts, Raquel is a talented fighter. I've seen her. I like her boxing.
I like more than that.
She's ranked at number 1. Savannah Marshall, the former champion, is ranked at number 2. Coincidentally, the both of these fighters are now promoted by MVP. I'm sure you've heard, not but 1 or 2 weeks ago it was announced that MVP had signed Raquel. Is it possible they'll have Raquel fight Savannah and let the winner challenge Franchon?
Franchon Crews sports a professional record of 10 wins with 2 losses and no draws, 2 recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out in 12 professional bouts. Last in action in June of this year opposite the ring, Citali Ortiz, who she beat by way of a majority decision. It was the only fight that Franchon has had in the last year and a half. But she fought this year. Before that, her last fight was the unanimous decision win over Yarde Green, a win that's aging well. So currently Franchon is coming off of 2 consecutive victories. If the intention now is for MVP to put Raquel in the ring with Franchon, to give Raquel the best chance at victory, they have to get her a tune-up fight first. Hell, I'd say they have to get her at least 2 tune-up fights before she's ready for a fight like that. Raquel may be an unbeaten fighter, but she's never actually competed at the same level as Franchon. Win or lose, Franchon has been in there with some of the best, with Savannah Marshall, with Yarde Green, with Clarissa Shields, with Aline Cedar-Rose. Win or lose, she is a lot more experienced at the top level than Raquel Miller, in spite of Raquel's unbeaten, unblemished record. For her to get ready, she needs 2 tune-up fights at least. Will MVP afford her that luxury to give her the best chance at victory? They're supposed to be promoting her now, so one would think they might.
Now, what they could do is stage a rematch between Franchon and Yarde for what would be the undisputed crown at super middle. And on that undercard, maybe you have Raquel tune up.
Find us some girl to beat up on. She needs the rounds.
I feel like she needs to introduce herself to the boxing community at large, who never really got to know her. I mean, there are very few content creators that pay as much attention to the women as I do, to where Raquel,
as I have,
they don't really know her. They haven't really seen her. They haven't had the chance to. But now that she's with MVP and, their megaphone, their ability to promote fights and promote fighters, she needs to introduce herself to the world and establish that she is a worthy adversary for the belt holders at this weight. There's been a lot of attention that's gone into MVP's signing spree. They've signed practically every top-shelf woman boxer across several weight classes. But it's not enough to just sign these fighters, and it's not enough to just put them to use.
Decorate undercards with them.
You're promoting these fighters. You're attempting to develop these fighters into marquee attractions, draws. To give young Raquel the best chance at victory, you gotta get her a tune-up fight. Otherwise, you're just setting her up to fail.
Franchon Crews is already a handful for fighters who have been fighting, let alone a fighter that hasn't in close to 3 years. To give Raquel a shot at winning this thing, you gotta get her a couple of tune-up fights. Otherwise, it's an exercise in futility.
My job is to, push him back, not let him do that, make him feel something he's never felt before, and make him think. And this fight, yeah, I'll be honest with you, I think it's one of them fights that's whoever lands first. That's how I like to live life. You know, it's like cool. Let's stand in the middle of the ring and fight. Let's see who comes out on top. Stylistically, it's one of the best fights. In terms of entertainment, you know, in my opinion, it's one of the best fights that could have got made in the light heavyweight division. It's bound to be action packed. My style of fighting and his style of fighting is to you know, to stop your opponent. So I've never seen him fight and, you know, just try to cruise, you know, to a point decision. And I'm the same, you know, if I see opportunity to take my opponent out, that's what I'm trying to do. And you know, it's one of them fights where I believe if you're trying to take someone's belt away from them, you know, you gotta, you know, take it to them, you gotta beat them convincingly. And everyone knows my style already. Entertainment, you know, try not to see the full 12 rounds, you know, try to finish the fight before the bell rings, because entertainment, I thought that's what everyone really wants to see.
Anthony is absolutely right. From a stylistic perspective, purely stylistic, not trash talk,
Not all the gay shit that American boxing fans spend their time talking about.
the gossip, the he said, she said. From a purely stylistic perspective, Benavidez versus Yarde promises to be fireworks irrespective of who you think wins, because David is a pressure guy.
He's an action guy, and so is Anthony Yarde. Neither guy is all that prone to taking a step backwards or using the ring, staying behind a jab. These are the kind of guys that step into their punches and try to hurt the other fighter. And yet, this fight has fallen in the background of Haney versus Norman.
And I don't think this fight is being talked about enough, even though it's the main event, even though it yields greater potential to be an all-action shootout than Haney versus Norman. That's the fight most people are talking about. I look at the condition of Anthony Yarde. These images coming out of Saudi Arabia, I look at Anthony compared to David Benavidez, how David Benavidez looks. You know, David's face looks a bit sunken in. His eyes, his cheekbones are pronounced. He looks a bit lethargic. We talked about that in my previous video, whereas Anthony...
Another day at the office. He's used to making this weight. I don't actually think Anthony balloons in weight as much in between fights as David does.
Weight is often a factor in today's boxing landscape. If David isn't making that weight as easily as Anthony is, that's certainly a factor in what could be an all-action shootout, a physical fight. The bookies have David Benavidez as the favorite going in, but if the bookies always got it right, there would never be an upset.
They don't always get it right.
Yeah, just the fact that David still has his own intact, that he still is an unbeaten fighter, unbeaten champion now going in, influences their perspective on the match, where I'm looking at David, and I just don't know. He hasn't been looking as destructive as a light heavyweight as he did as a super middle. He's got 2 fights as a light heavyweight, hasn't stopped anybody, hasn't knocked anybody out, and he looked quite vulnerable against the then unbeaten David Morrell. So how will he look against a more seasoned fighter, seasoned overall, and a more seasoned light heavyweight than David Morrell was? I mean, what the hell was David Morrell, if not a greenhorn and a super middleweight who moved up in weight like David Benavidez?
Beating him at 175 isn't as big a feather in his cap as people make it out to be.
I look at the demeanor of both fighters. Anthony Yarde seems very much up for this, where David Benavidez is off somewhere still crying about a Canelo Alvarez fight that didn't happen. Anthony's talking about David, while David's talking about Canelo. Anthony's talking about David, focused on David, as he should be.
Aesthetic of the fight.
They're both aggressive, David and Anthony, but David is usually a more prolific puncher within a round than Anthony Yarde, throwing punches in bunches. He's the combination puncher of the two. The danger there is, when stepping into your shots and stringing punches together, there's an opportunity for Anthony Yarde to catch him in between. We know that Ronald Gavril did years ago, flooring him. We know that David Morrell did more recently.
David Benavidez, even at super middle, didn't pack one-hitter-quitter power. He beats guys up through accumulation, an accumulation of punches resulting in an accumulation of damage. The one-hitter-quitter power, I would say, goes to Anthony.
I think Anthony packs more single punching power in a single punch than David Benavidez. So when David is closing the distance and squaring up, stringing punches together, if Anthony gets in with a hard shot, how well does David take the shot? There's a legitimate argument that this will be the biggest puncher he's ever faced in the light heavyweight division, younger than an Alexander Vazdik, more seasoned than a David Morrell, if he gets in with a hot one.
And if David Benavidez is now struggling to make the weight just 3 fights into his light heavyweight campaign.
This could get bad. This could get ugly. You notice that PBC fighters like David, when boxing off platform, struggle to stay in character. Either when they're boxing off platform or boxing boxers that box on another platform when they come over.
Struggle to stay in character.
Whether it's Fulton going over to Japan and getting beat up by Inoue, or Terrence Crawford crossing over to the PBC side of things and beating up PBC fighter Errol Spence Jr., they struggle to stay in character when they're not inside of their bubble. Does that happen this weekend?
Even if David wins this weekend, it's not like things get easier after that. They don't. He's a world champion now at 2 weights, and there is a burden placed upon him to face either former champion Artur Beterbiev or Dmitry Bivol for undisputed.
Things don't get easier after that. If Anthony Yarde wins, I think it's a bit different. I don't think Anthony will prioritize undisputed, a fight with Dmitry Bivol. He's already been there and done that with Sergey Kovalev, and he's done it with Artur Beterbiev. He lost in both world title attempts.
If he wins on Saturday, I don't think he's going to be in a rush to jeopardize his reign in a fight with Dmitry Bivol. No, I think he would keep things domestic thereafter for at least a few fights. So what you're talking about is a Joshua Buatsi showdown, which is worth a lot of money.
Perhaps a Callum Smith showdown, a Willie Hutchinson showdown. Keep things domestic and get the most out of that world title.
Well, you still have it.
The third time might be the charm for Anthony Yarde, and if it proves to be, I don't expect him to be in any rush to go fight Dmitry Bivol thereafter. And David?
He's fucked.
The game don't love nobody, that's what they say. And nobody more than the Americans place so much emphasis on the O, the unbeaten record, to where if David gets beat on Saturday, he's falling off a cliff, man. The ones who put him on a pedestal and propped him up for so many weeks and so many months and at least a few years now will quickly abandon ship and disavow him.
Remember how many guys were putting Stephen Fulton up on a pedestal, saying that he would be the one to expose Naoya Inoue?
Where the fuck did they go, right? Same place that Benavidez's supporters will go if he falters, if he loses. They don't love you.
More than they hate somebody else. Sometimes that's the way it is. We saw that with Guillermo Rigondeaux, who most of his fights went unnoticed unless Vasyl Lomachenko was brought up.
And all of a sudden, he's got all of these opinionated fans coming out of the woodwork, that he's going to expose Vasyl Lomachenko, that he's going to break his jaw, so that when he lost, where did all those people go?
They don't love you more than they hate somebody else. That's the way it is. A lot of David supporters, they're not really supporters of David more than haters of Canelo.
I do want to go in and work with Jake Paul in preparation for this fight and preparation for mine. It'll be good to. I need to know what he sees that makes him think this is a good idea. That's one I'm very difficult to know. And then number two, it's like I want him to feel what it's like to be in there with a big, strong, world-class heavyweight before the day, because I don't want him to get hit with the first jab and it's a whole new sensation. So, and you never know. You know, I think there's some game plans that he could cause a bit of trouble. Do you know what I mean? But
no, I'm gonna stop you.
I have to.
Why would Lawrence Okolie want to help Jake Paul, of all people, to prepare and potentially upset Anthony Joshua, in effect, humiliate him? Why would Lawrence Okolie want to be a party to that? There is a pattern emerging over there at Queensbury. See that Lawrence Okolie would like to help Jake Paul prepare to, in effect, beat Anthony Joshua. Moses Itelma would like to see Jake win. Tyson Fury is picking him to win. And this is not how people behave when they feel you are beneath them. In the old country, we used to have a saying, they want to see you do well, just not doing better than they are.
Well, is that the case here? I mean, Anthony Joshua's career is circling the drain. He's coming off over a year of inactivity and a knockout loss to Daniel Dubois in a fight that he was widely favored to win. Is he doing better than these fighters?
It's not about what you see in the greater scheme of things so much as how they feel about him. They must feel he's doing better than they are, as they seem green with envy. That's how I see it. This is not how people behave when they feel that you are beneath them. Some part of Lawrence and Moses and Tyson must feel.
They don't pair up like this and form a clot like this unless they feel they need to.
There was another saying in the old country, show me who your enemies are, and I will show you your strength. That this many people are rooting against Anthony Joshua, who they have more in common with than Jake. Anthony's their fellow boxer, their fellow champion, in this instance, their fellow Brit. So perhaps their hate of Anthony is stronger, much stronger than their sense of patriotism and nationalism, that they would root against their fellow boxer in Anthony Joshua and their fellow Brit in favor of a social media influencer who looks to turn boxing on its head.
How catastrophic would it be for Anthony Joshua to lose even a round to Jake Paul? I hope that Anthony is listening. I hope he's taking stock and making the necessary preparations. You have to treat Jake Paul like he's a killer, even though he's not.
You have to take him seriously, because there are a lot of people out there that would relish in your destruction, your humiliation. They relish in your failures. You shouldn't give them that satisfaction. In truth, Tyson Fury and Anthony have never been friends, so it's not necessarily a betrayal, and to my knowledge,
Moses ain't ever been buddy-buddy with Anthony either.
Lawrence is the Judas. Lawrence, who out of the amateurs into the pros, was promoted by Matchroom, the same as Anthony, managed by 258 Management for a long while, which was Anthony's management company. I've always felt that Lawrence wanted what Anthony had.
He's the snake.
There's an air about him.
He's the snake.
I won't begrudge Lawrence doing what he thinks is best for him, but he strikes me as the kind of guy who, where in doing what's best for him, he ain't got no problem fucking you over. Look at how he turned on Eddie Hearn upon leaving Matchroom for Boxer to go be the face of Sky Sports. Remember that? And look at how he left them. Look at how he left Boxer for Queensbury. Yes, Lawrence is very much doing what's right for him.
This is something he doesn't have to do, though. He doesn't have to help Jake Paul. He doesn't have to get involved. He wants to, because he relishes in Anthony's failures. And you tell me that that's not jealousy?
It's not envy. You used to rub elbows with this guy. You used to be promoted by the same people. He used to manage you to some extent. And now what you want to do is help a social media influencer humiliate him.
And that's not jealousy.
Anthony's coming off a loss. His career seems almost over. What is there for Lawrence to be jealous about? Well, Anthony's made a lot more money than the vast majority of these guys. That's something to be jealous about.
His debonair good looks.
Ladies love cool AJ, whereas Lawrence is really just that fat pre-diabetic kid stuffing his face with McDonald's.
On the inside, that's still who he is. What he is.
Judas!
He's the snake. He's a snake. For that, I would say he is. Oh, I can't wait to hear what Boxin' Beats and Rhymes is going to have to say about this, because I'm sure he's got some thoughts on it.
Judas!